start with this question to my friend Fred. I thought he was saying that it was embrace our weirdness, that was what we should do. But then he seemed to be saying we've got to go mainstream or we will die. I understand the draw of both arguments. And I guess one way of characterizing my argument, I mean, our circumstances are difficult. We are facing trends that are at best problematic, that worry me. I don't know what the future is. I don't have a surefire plan or program. But I have this suggestion. We must do both, embrace our weirdness and attend to the mainstream. And what this really means is we must play a role, which includes making friends to help us play a role in the fashioning of the mainstream, because it's always being refashioned. There are choices involved that will yet be made, and there will be a mainstream, despite the flourishing, the blooming of 1,000 flowers of spiritualism. There will be a mainstream because there will be laws and policies that are authoritative and that shape who we are. Are secularism and atheism suitable partners for this kind of diplomacy that our sponsors are recommending? And I'm going to argue not exactly, or with caution, or it depends upon what you mean. Now, begin with, let me set up the way I see the problem. And I was going to try to draw this on the board, but I think time is too short, and you probably couldn't read my writing if I wrote fast anyway. So imagine a diagram. I guess we can array this left and right in familiar ways. It'll make it simpler. What we're looking for is openness of conversation on the deepest questions of truth and spirituality. There are two main ways in which that openness can fail to happen. One way, let's say we should put this on your right, shouldn't we? So one way is that we can take the truth to be a given and we possess it, and so what is there to talk about? Okay, that's one way of being closed. But there's another way. Conveniently, we'll put this at the left of the diagram that I'm not drawing. And that would be the viewpoint that there is no truth with a capital T, so what is there to talk about? And you can have your own truth, and you can have your own truth. That I suggest to you, and it hovers just over the new spirituality that has been discussed here. That relativistic position is also inimical to the kind of conversation that we have been invited to engage in. Let me say I've described it as this left end as relativistic. Let me say something else about it because this will be important. Of course, it's not without content. Its content is precisely the celebration of unlimited personal freedom on the one hand, but this has gone together, at least before the late liberationist style of spirituality, this has gone together with an idea of the authority of science. And these two things have fit together. This is, in a way, central to modern liberal rationalism, that these will be our twin lodestars. We believe together in the foundational truth of science, and this science will be will facilitate our pursuit for limitless personal freedom, the freedom of every individual to do whatever he or she wants. So this left pole is not without content. It doesn't deny knowledge or orientation. It denies, what it denies is that reason has anything to say about the good of the soul, about our ultimate purposes. Couldn't we describe it starting with a simple proposition that we know something, but we don't know everything? Isn't that where Randy must have us starting? Isn't that the precondition of any interesting conversation about anything important. We must know something, and something about the soul, about the whole, about the spirit, about what it all means. And yet we must not know everything, or else, then again, there wouldn't be anything to talk about. As in the quotation from Joseph Smith, our words are broken, imperfect, and messed up. I can't remember the rest of the lovely quotation. But they're not pointless. They still stand for something, however inchoately, that is present in our minds and in our souls. The political community provides the default settings, and every society has default settings. No society is simply and purely pluralist. Our so-called pluralism is, in fact, more and more a secularism, and yes, even, to quote the famous Glenn Beck, since he's put this word newly in circulation, a secular progressivism. So how does this affect our quest for respectful contestation? That's Randy's lovely term, respectful contestation. It would be nice to set politics aside and enjoy our rich conversation among trusted friends, in which we are open to infinitely diverse possibilities while grounded practically in real convictions. But to dismiss the political is to fall under its sway. The rich and difficult pluralism, if you wish, the non-generalizable openness of friends to the possibility that the convictions of one friend may offer enrichments to my convictions. That rich and difficult pluralism, which is an object of aspiration and nothing to take for granted, this true, difficult, and rare pluralism is always at risk. Even here, I propose, among friends, at risk of a confusion with a sham pluralism that is in fact a closed secularism. Secular progressive liberalism, the view that all views are equal by default because none can be settled by science, and so all are equally groundless, so none really matters. This view is actually the most crippling to our efforts to be both grounded and open at the same time. For in truth, it is neither grounded nor open. Secular liberal fundamentalism is the most subtle, most alluring, but also most hardened and often self-deceived, non-negotiable, debilitating fundamentalism. I would propose to you that our academic voices must always, in a way, be derivative of the voices we share with those in whom we have a certain faith in some ultimate realities. This is why that I think Mr. Cannon was right to say that we really haven't gotten beyond the question of whether in the beginning there was God or there was not. This has to remain fundamental. I might paraphrase it in this way, revise the question in this way. Is there authority above human making and therefore above the joint reign of science and freedom? Because the tendency of this spirituality, I don't see it as the good news that it seems to be to many, because I think it's very vulnerable to a co-optation by secularism. Spiritualism is a form of late liberalism or liberationism, where the self-expression tends to eclipse an interest in some authoritative truth. People claiming their own authority. It's true because it's my truth. I'm just echoing language from my predecessors on the panel. This then is why I believe that openness to more light and knowledge must always be supported by firmness in the right, falling into Lincoln's language, firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right. As long as liberalism remains our default dogma, and I think it does even under the coming influence of pluralistic spirituality, as long as liberalism remains our default dogma, then we must combine openness to diverse possibilities with courage to fight soulless ideology and moral decay.